Yeah, we're talking about the Terminator, and we're talking about the arm and the chip recovery scene, which was deleted. Now, if you've seen this scene, I think it was included. I don't know if it was included in the bonus or if it was included in the Ultimate Edition. I've got the Ultimate Edition and I've not watched it in probably about 15 years or something.
I'm the same. I don't think I've seen this film in round about that length of time. Yeah. It's been a long time. It's strange how I've watched T2 a hell of a lot, but I don't watch the original half as much as I've watched, or I have not watched.
Well, I mean, I was 8 when it came out, John, so my dad was a big fan of the original film, and it's probably totally from about it was 84 it came out, so probably about 86, 87 was when I probably saw it. I was about 10, probably shouldn't have saw it. Horror film in my book as a kid. Terrified of Arnold Schwarzenegger in that film. And obviously that was a good 4 or 5 years before the sequel came out by the time I saw the original film. So I had a good 5 years to watch that film over and over again, but once T2 came out, that just blew it out the water for me. A great sequel. Surpassed the original, which is a hard thing to do, and that's one of the reasons I've not really watched the original film as much as the second one, but I still love it. I do love it, John. And I do know the scene they're talking about. I do know the scene they're talking about, and I'm glad they took it out in hindsight. At the time, if it was a standalone film, I would have thought, nah, they should have kept that in. But it wasn't a great acted scene, and we'll get into that why it wasn't a great acted scene. But I thought, looking in hindsight, that scene with obviously Dyson, is it Miles Dyson you call him? He's in his workplace and they've got the arm and they've got the chip. That was a great reveal. That was oh wow, they actually recovered that stuff.
That was right then, wasn't it?
From the no, it was a sort of introduction to the character. He was walking through his sort of lab, right. You know, and he goes into the sort of vault and you can see the arm just sitting in the sort of glass cage and the chip as well. And was
that in the first film or the second?
It was in the first film. This scene was in the first film. Yeah. It was a key scene. It was cut. It wasn't Dyson,
that film was completely fucking gone then.
But we'll get into it, John. We'll get into it.
Because I remember the chip scene.
Yeah, from the second film.
Yeah, and they obviously had it.
So I'll fill you in anyway. This is on screen rant, and it probably will. You probably remember it once you see this if you've seen the Ultimate Edition. The Terminator producer Gail Ann Hurd explained why a key deleted scene featuring the recovery of the T-800's arm and chip was cut from the movie. Released in 1984, James Cameron's sci-fi classic introduced an iconic character in Arnold Schwarzenegger's cyborg assassin from the future. With the release of Terminator 2 Judgment Day in 1991, Cameron's creation officially became a franchise, but as hardcore fans realised the series was actually set up perfectly in a scene deleted from the original movie. In the excised near-ending moment, scientists from Cyberdyne Systems recovered parts from the destroyed T-800, setting in motion the chain of events that will eventually lead to the future war between humanity and the machines. So now, almost 40 years after the release of the first Terminator, producer Hurd has explained why the decision was made to cut the scene that put a perfect capper on an already near-perfect movie. As Hurd laid out on Twitter, X, the scene was removed due to some questionable acting by cast members who were not actually professional actors. I sensed this, John, when I saw it. But
I need to see this scene. I think I've actually seen this.
But where instead financiers that she and Cameron were unfortunately forced to put into the movie. You get this quite a bit, John, in films. And this is what Hurd had to say. The Terminator financier John Daly's Hemdale Films had an output deal with Orion Pictures, but hadn't yet made it a hit. That changed with our film and Platoon. They insisted we use financier friends, not actors in this scene, which ruined it for us. They were paid as actors via the Taft-Hartley Act. I think he insisted they would be in the film because the financiers were promised a return on their investment and yet to receive one. Daly never believed the film would be a success. The film cost $6.4 million, which seemed like an awful lot to us at the time, which is crazy when you think about it now, but obviously at the time,
obviously inflation and stuff like that is still a very small number.
So I mean, if you ever get the chance to see,
I've seen this
that scene, I think it might be in the bonus stuff. I can't remember. I might be having maybe I'm doing a bit of a Mandela effect here. Because I've seen the Terminator 2 Ultimate Edition, John, and you've got Michael Biehn's back as Kyle Reese in the second one. He comes as a vision in the hospital that Sarah's in, and get on your feet, soldier. pulls her together. You know, you need to get out of here for the sake of John.
Michael Biehn was phenomenal, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was
what
fantastic.
What happened to that guy's career? I'm pretty sure he didn't have as good a career as he should have.
No, maybe not. Maybe not. I thought, obviously, I think the last thing I saw him in was probably Planet Terror. You know, the Robert Rodriguez film, double matinee with Tarantino's Death Proof.
Absolutely mental film.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the probably last time I saw him in anything. I probably have seen him in stuff
just
since.
Look at that shot though, isn't it just unbelievable?
Yeah.
But Stephen, this is everything that I spoke about
the
other night when I spoke about films of this era. You could recreate that full CG and it would just be shit. This will all be practical. I'm not saying it's all motion, stop motion, but there's something tangible. You can touch it. It feels real, and that adds a degree of creepiness that it's just not attainable with visual effects. You just cannot.
I'm sure that scene that I don't know. I think that one might be from T3, where John's having the nightmare and then he wakes up.
Oh yeah,
and it looks right at the camera. That's
just a creepy bastard
it's
thing,
the way
isn't it?
It's just grinning at the camera.
This is what my biggest fear is with AI.
Yeah,
that if we do tip over the edge and there's a singularity moment, that we will have things like this running about. Hopefully not in my lifetime. Hopefully not in anyone I know's lifetime. But my God, that is just the fear.
Yeah.
Genuinely the fear. It's the fact that we get real teeth.
Yeah. Have you noticed the teeth though? Have you noticed the teeth though? Have you noticed something about the teeth? The two front ones?
They're kind of, yeah.
Do you notice the space between them?
Yeah.
Who's got the space between their teeth?
Oh, I don't fucking... I'm blanking.
Arnie.
Oh, so he has, yeah.
That's what that's based on.
I didn't even realise he had a space.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he's got it now, but certainly when he was making these films, he had the space between his teeth.
Too busy looking at the man's jacked fucking Mr. Olympian, fucking 7-time Mr. Olympian body.
You notice it more.
That's detail. That's attention to detail. Again, that's what makes Cameron so fucking great, Stephen.
Yeah.
But yeah, the deleted scene. If it's came at the, and you're telling me this originally was at the start of the movie, because
that's would have been the end of the movie.
The end of the movie.
This was the end of Terminator 1.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. They revealed they had the actual chip
after Sarah had gone through that factory crush.
Yeah, and obviously
what was it she said to it? You're terminated.
Yeah,
motherfucker, or something. I can't remember.
It was,
and it's crushed. Obviously, the remains were left in there.
And then the hand they'd retrieved it. Also the chip.
This team came in. Well, they weren't actors. They were.
That was cut out the movie, and then ultimately we did see that they had retrieved it in the second movie.
It was a good review.
Yeah.
It was a great review.
Yeah, that wouldn't have made any fucking sense, Stephen, to do that at the start or the end of the first movie. It
suggests there's going to be a sequel before they knew the film was going to be a success. So it was a kind of...
And this would have been before James Cameron was a sort of...
household name.
Like box office titan as we know him now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a smart omission. And the fact, I don't think I've seen it. Maybe I blanked it out in my head. I'll need to watch it. And maybe it'll rejig something in my brain. But the fact it's financiers, it's not actual paid actors, it's a sensible course of action to then delete that out of the fucking movie. Why would you have it in the movie? The financiers get paid, so they get their sort of 60 pieces of silver, if you'd like, if that's the phrase, from the movie, because also they had fears. Stephen, this goes back to what you had in the 70s as well with Star Wars, where you had directors making unbelievably original concepts, putting them into theatres, and they were exploding and creating huge amounts of money and making cinematic history. This is when we still had originality in Hollywood, but there would have been trepidation and fear in the studios when these movies were getting released.
I think that's always been there, John, and it's even more so now because they are afraid to make any move that they don't think will make money, but it was always there. I don't think we could be that naive to say it wasn't there in the 60s, 70s and 80s. Of course it was there. There's always risk with any film getting made. Lots of money getting put up front on the basis that you hope it's going to be a success, and it always is the case for film, regardless of what studio it is, what director it is, who's in the cast. It's always a risk.
And but Stephen, when you actually look at it though, and you say that about risk, it's obviously all scaled now, because now we've got movies making over $1 billion at the box office every other fucking year, if not multiple times a year, which was a real milestone maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, a movie breaking that. Also, Disney have changed that with the MCU. Barbie's now made over $1 billion. I think Oppenheimer's not far off it. But back then, these movies would have cost a fraction of what they cost now. I mean, you speak about, what was the one we were speaking about? Was it this one? It was like 6 point something million. They thought it was expensive.
Well, you got to remember,
that's cheap as hell. Obviously, inflation.
You got to remember, James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn were not household names. Nobody really knew who these people were. You know, unless you were following Arnie's bodybuilding sort of career at that point.
Hercules.
And Conan, I suppose, granted. But as a box office name, he would not have cost as much as he would have for the sequel. No. You know, and Linda Hamilton as well.
But even then, the risk was there, and they were also reluctant. But it was much smaller numbers, so the actual tipping point to make a profit in the theatres would have been significantly lower. And you think of the actual calibre of movie it was getting released back then, it's just night and day. Not even
obviously
close.
It was left out, John, because they didn't have proper actors to play out the scene. If they had proper actors, would you have been happy with that scene being left in?
No. For the reasons mentioned, Steve, and it's just it obviously delivers a cliffhanger and gives you a sign that there's going to be a second movie, but it's better as a singular story if you admit that she's won, defeated the Terminator, and the sort of fucking this repeating of history and things coming back and trying to change the future, that is taken off the table. Then you go into a second movie, it's revealed they did get it. It's a sort of eureka moment in the second movie.
It's a part of Back to the Future that always bugged me at the end, was that although Robert Zemeckis did put that something's got to be done about your kids, the whole scene, the way it was played out, and then leaves you there. It was never planned to be a sequel. And the words of Robert Zemeckis, they never planned. It was just a joke. It was a throwaway. It was, this is their next adventure.
Then they had to remake it anyway.
Studio pressure.
Yeah,
the first film's a success. You've already left a cliffhanger. We can follow on for it, because Robert Zemeckis, it then throws up other issues. Well, Jennifer's in this scene. We don't really want Jennifer playing a big part in this storyline. You know, it's all about Doc Marty's the sort of dynamics between those two, and they had to put her to sleep. Just to get around it.
And I'm blanking on his name, which is a horrendous George McFly actor.
Crispin Glover,
Crispin Glover didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
Because he didn't come back.
Yeah.
And it sparked off a whole lawsuit, which he's still up about to this day.
Yeah.
And still wearing incredibly dapper suits. Speaking
still
about it.
There as well. Yeah.
He has. Stephen, that's a sort of perfect example of why you don't put something like that in a movie of that nature at the time.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of putting yourself into the corner, backing yourself into a corner, if I can do the right saying. Presume there's going to be enough success to merit a sequel, and then you're kind of ruining the story. I mean, you're not. I mean, you could probably set it up and say, look, it's just doomed to repeat. And you could, even if there wasn't a Terminator 2, 3, Salvation. I was watching Salvation briefly the other night.
People, this is the thing about time travel.
It could be a sort of thing about humans. Just
it's the thing about time travel, though, is that, you know, if Sarah Connor saved the day at the end of the film, then Kyle doesn't have to come back.
Exactly.
You know, it's a bit of a paradox there.
Yeah.
You know, so there has to be that. It makes sense to have that scene then, you know, and go, well, it is, as you say, it's a loop, you know, that's just going to keep repeating itself.
But it would have had to have been done in a better standard.
I mean, a lot of people are bugged about, I think it was a great ending, but I get what they're saying in terms of the Terminator 2, the incinerating them at the very end, thumbs up, right in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, if you've destroyed all evidence, then all the events that have just happened shouldn't have happened because you've destroyed. And I mean, send you cross-eyed.
Stephen, there's a fucking chart. There is a chart that exists of all of the different timelines, the paradoxes, everything in Terminator. Many people have tried to make sense of it, and I don't think they've succeeded.
No.
I don't think there is any sense now in the multiple timelines.
And every timeline since 1991, the acting's got bad.
It has.
It's got worse.
It has. The films have got worse. They should really have stopped after T2.
Yeah.
That's the prime example of Hollywood forcing.
I mean, can you imagine watching that Terminator 1984, Terminator 2 Judgment Day 1991, and then getting into that Dark Fate where
dreadful.
You're like, for the whole of the second part of that trilogy, say,
you're rooting for John Connor.
You're going to protect John, make sure he's okay, and then within the first fucking 3 minutes,
it wasn't even that, Stephen. It was like 50 seconds.
It's ridiculous. We've got Ed back.
Fucking joke.
We've got Ed back.
Still bitter about James Cameron.
Yeah.
But I think it was Comic-Con.
I think it was panic. I think we need to say something, because I don't think people are going to come out and see this. Because the vibes at that point where, I don't know if I remember John, we talked about it,
movie.
And I was like, I don't know if I want to go and see this now. It's getting really bad feedback on where they're going with this and the direction they're going. And then that came out, the James Cameron quote about Ed coming back, and I thought, I might go and watch it after all. If they've got him back, then there's something in it.
It was just what blew me away was it was just a substandard remake of T2 Judgment Day. Everything, the Terminator was this sort of on steroids, lesser version of the Robert Patrick T1 for T1000. Everything was just fucking brought Arnie back to being a upholsterer. I think he was playing Carl.
Carl, yeah.
The upholsterer. He was a comedic levity.
And Sarah was just some bitter old person.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a good scene, John. There was a good scene I did like where she did say, I'm starting to forget what he looks like. And my memory, I thought that was an amazing scene. And to be fair, I know I don't like the scene. I don't like the whole Edward Furlong character being shot dead right at the beginning. But in terms of the technical aspects of it, it was fucking impressive. It really was.
But what wound me up a bit was the fact he was still wearing the same clothes. Yeah. And I think it was like 2 years later.
As well, yeah.
2 years later, it's like, come on. He's got one fucking outfit and his wardrobe.
Enemy t-shirt, yeah.
The man would have shivered. Or the boy would have shivered.
Or get a haircut. He's got the same hairstyle from 2 years ago.
It's like 2 years of a gap.
Yeah. That boy's not reaching puberty.
He
Bang.
He didn't. Yeah, it made no fucking sense. Yeah. But again, that was just to just nullify the Schwarzenegger Terminator into this bit part figure. Age him and turn him into this sort of withered old, almost fragile version of what we'd seen. We'd already got that in T2.
Yeah.
It became almost human-like. John had almost turned him into this. I mean, it was done before, wasn't it? It was John in the future that sent him back to protect, so it kind of...
That smile he was trying to do.
Yeah, it was fucking some of the best stuff I've ever seen. What was the line he says? He tried to replicate, didn't he?
No problemo.
No, there was another one. He kept saying dickwad, I think. Didn't he? He did. Just a brilliant fucking film. For me, that is still the best. But Stephen, I'm with you. Terminator has got its own unique energy, the original. And for me, the deleted scene wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
It would have just ruined it as a singular experience.
I just thought the scene in the second one was perfect. The way they revealed it. I thought it was a camera sort of following Dyson through the lab, following him through. There's an actual blooper in it. Dyson actually holds the door open for the cameraman to come through with him.
That doesn't make any sense, does it? Unless there's another person in the room.
So
and it's first person.
Yeah. So and the little guy with the Pepsi can, the clipboard says, just what I asked, where did it come from? And Dyson's like, you know something? I got asked the same question. I was told, don't ask. So top secret. Big secret.